You're awake when you shouldn't be. Not because you have insomnia, because something inside you won't stop. A question that never quite forms, but it's there, and it stays. There was a moment somewhere along the way when you crossed an invisible line. On one side, you were young. On the other, you were an adult. Nobody marked that line. Nobody stopped you to say, things are different now. You just crossed it. And then came the feeling nobody prepared you for. It's not sadness. It's not regret. It's something more subtle than that. It's the feeling that the life you're living is real, but at the same time, it doesn't feel entirely yours. Like you're playing a role someone wrote before you were born. You wake up, work, pay bills, sleep, repeat. And at some point, on some ordinary Tuesday, you ask yourself, is this it? Let me tell you what actually happened. You grew up inside a system that was very good at preparing you for one thing only: arriving. Getting to college, getting the job, getting the stable relationship. Everyone around you kept telling you where to go, and you got there. The problem is, nobody taught you what to do once you were there. School taught you to be evaluated. Family taught you to be safe. Society taught you to be productive. None of those three things taught you to be you. And that's not your parents' fault. It's a structural flaw in how human beings pass knowledge from one generation to the next. We pass information. We don't pass wisdom about how to live. Carl Jung spent his life studying what he called the individuation process. In simple terms, the process of becoming who you truly are. Not who your parents wanted, not who culture told you to be. And what Jung found is that most people never begin this process. Most people spend their entire lives using an identity they didn't build. It was given to them. When you were 7, someone told you that you were smart, or shy, or the responsible one in the family. And you believed it, not because you tested it, but because you were a child, and children believe the people they love. Those stories became the foundation of your identity, and you spent your life confirming them, avoiding what contradicts them, seeking what reinforces them. You built an entire life on top of a narrative that was never yours. There's a reason this crisis hits differently in your 30s. In your 20s, you still had the illusion of time. It'll get better. I'll figure it out. I can still change. In your 30s, that illusion starts to crack. You have enough history now to see patterns. You've made decisions you can't undo. You've lost some paths that closed behind you. And at the same time, and this is the part almost nobody talks about, you have more clarity than you've ever had. Your 30s are when the illusions of youth die. Most people experience that as loss. But when an illusion dies, what's left is real. What you feel isn't decay. It's the beginning of honesty.
That restlessness you carry, have you ever asked what it wants? I'm not talking about therapy. I'm not talking about self-help. I'm talking about stopping and listening. That feeling isn't a flaw in your system. It's a signal. Imagine you've been walking in one direction for 10 years, and then your internal compass starts pointing somewhere else. Most people ignore that compass because changing is scary, because the people around you expect you to keep going, because you've invested too much in the current direction to admit you need to turn. But the compass doesn't stop. The crisis isn't your enemy. It's the most honest part of you saying something needs to change. When people feel this crisis, the first thing they do is look for a quick answer. They buy a course, follow a guru, adopt a new philosophy. Some of those things are genuinely useful. The problem is when they become escape routes. There's a huge difference between seeking growth and seeking distraction from yourself. The self-development culture, the way it's sold today, often just offers you another ready-made identity. You swap one mask for another. You stop being the purposeless, dissatisfied one and become the stoic who wakes up at 5 a.m. The process of truly knowing yourself has no shortcuts. It's slow, uncomfortable, and it requires sitting in silence long enough for the things you avoid to finally surface. Here's something that goes against what you were raised to believe. Most people think they have a fixed identity, a true self somewhere inside them, waiting to be discovered, like a statue inside a block of marble, and the work is just removing the excess.
But modern psychology, and most ancient philosophical traditions, if you read them carefully, points to something else. You don't discover who you are. You decide who you are. Identity isn't archaeology, it's architecture. You don't dig until you find it, you build it. Because if you need to discover it, you spend your life waiting for a revelation that never comes. But if you need to build it, then you have work to do. Then you have agency. The Stoic Epictetus, who was a slave and became one of the most important philosophers in Rome, put it this way: the first task of anyone who seeks philosophy is to let go of presumption, the presumption of already knowing who you are. Because as long as you assume you already know, there's no room to build. I'm not going to give you a 5-step list. That would be dishonest given the weight of what we've been discussing. But I'll leave you with 3 questions, not to answer right now, to carry with you. First, of everything you believe about yourself, which parts did you actually test and which parts did you simply inherit? Second, if you removed from your life everything you do out of obligation, approval, or fear, what would be left? Third, that restlessness you feel, if you stopped running from it and started listening to it, what would it be trying to tell you? These questions don't have a right answer. They have your answer, and that's exactly the point. Nobody warned you it would be like this, that adult life has no map, that the script you were given was incomplete, that the most important questions you'll have to write yourself. But the fact that you're still unsettled is good news. The people who are no longer unsettled are the ones who stopped asking. And if you made it this far, it's because you haven't stopped yet. This channel exists for this kind of conversation, not to give you answers, to help you find the right questions.